Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm back. It's actually the next morning. I've done a few more things to the cover, things I actually did say to you with one exception, or two exceptions actually. I put some black splatters on here because I like the drama it actually added. I've also gone in and I've put my Handmade by Ceri Griffiths stamp on here because I think anything you make as an artist you should sign, even though it's for me. I'm into the habit of doing that and I like putting that there. And I didn't realise, well I did realise, but I forgot that I had a butterfly on that as well. The other thing I added was I wanted some sort of motto to take me through 2022. And it's okay to not be okay really resonated with me, and it comes from this stamp set by visibleimage.com. They're based here in Wales and I love their stamps, and it usually says sometimes it's okay to not be okay. I just blanked that bit out and then stamped it. I stamped it on a bit of tissue and treated it in the same way that I treated the napkin and put it on. Then once that was done, I Mod Podged over the whole thing just to, if you will, call it weatherproof it. As I said yesterday, I'd really like to put some texture on here, but I know if this is going to be in my bag and it's going to be in and out when I travel around, I thought keeping it flat would be a good idea. We'll talk about the inside cover boards a bit later, but now I need to move on and do some stuff reasonably quickly, I think, because I don't want this to go past an hour. So I'm going to set my timer for an hour again, just to keep myself on track. If it does need to go to 3 videos, and it does, but I don't see why it should. So, first thing I want to do is I want to reinforce the inside of this spine. So I've got this, it's like a bit of linen. I do want to cut that down ever so slightly though, because I don't need it to go all the way to the top, but I do think I'd like it to be a little bit over the edge, should we say. So let's just take a pair of scissors and trim this off a little bit. Not the straightest cut in the world by the looks of it, but you know, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to be good enough. So if I have that up by there, then I just come and I'll take about that much off by there. The reason I'm putting this on here is a couple of reasons. Number one, it will strengthen the spine, as in the stress areas, which are these folds. Also, it will cover up all of the workings I've got in there, which will be all of this card. So I'm just going to put that in place now. I don't really care that it's evenly spaced, okay, but I would like it to be roughly equidistant so there's equal support in this. So I'm just going to bring in a pencil and I'm going to put a bit of a line on my board just so I know roughly where it needs to sit to. I'm not going to stress about that. How far up do I need it to go? And if I put it about there and put a little bit of a line along there, okay, that just gives me some parameters for where I want to put the glue. Now I'm going to be using a bone folder for this because I want to make sure that I get right down into that gap with the fabric when it's on there. Now my method for doing this is I'm going to be using Fabri-Tac and I'm going to be gluing this first and then I'll glue the side pieces in either side. You could use something like double-sided tape for this, but I found if I use double-sided tape and then I try to pierce holes through it later, I sometimes hit a few problems. So I'm going to put a few lines of this down here. I'm quite happy about doing a zigzag effect down the middle. I don't want to put so much glue on here that it becomes this mess of stuff seeping through. Let's put it up to there and up to there. I'm going to just spread that just ever so gently with my finger, because if I've got thick layers of this glue, then what's going to happen is it's going to seep through and I'm going to end up marks on this side, which probably not going to be seen because they're going to be behind the signatures when they're put in anyway. So that's my first stage. Then I'm going to pull this back and I'm going to come in, I'm going to put a line of Fabri-Tac down this line, or I would if it will come out. There you go. So I'm putting that down into this join and I'm being quite generous there, and if it shows there I'm okay with that. And I'm going to come in and work it right down in to that groove so that it ends up supporting the book more. And then I'm going to come in and put another line down here just to secure it, and then we're going to have to do the other side as well. Now this line is actually going to be put underneath the end of book pages, like the ones that I'm going to cover these with, so they're not going to see a lot of them, but just for my peace of mind I want to make sure that it's all nicely sealed in. Right, let's turn this around and do this on the other side. Hopefully I'm not making you ill by swinging you around back and forth. You could use other things to reinforce this with. I know some people use canvas. There's a product out there which is, I believe it's a building product called Tyvek, which is like a tape that's really, really robust. And I know that in America, some of the envelopes that the Postal Service use are actually made from it as well. And it's quite popular with journal makers over there. I don't have access to that. Well, that's a bit of a lie. I do have access to it, but I'm certainly not going to pay the prices that the builders merchants want paying for it. So I'm quite happy to do this with bits of fabric. Very often what I do is I'll use canvas for this, but you can use whatever you wish really. I mean, as long as it's not an ultra fine fabric that's going to really fray or tear on you too much, then I think you're okay. So let's put that down. Right, I just want to make sure that it's right down in this groove and right across there. I give it a bit of a fold. That helps me also push it down into there. Right, now that's going to sit for a while, and I'm quite happy for that to sit. I will make sure it's packed down in there because that's the bit that really needs it, is that bit there. So while this is drying, we're going to be looking at what I've done with the signatures, and the reason why I've done what I've done with the signatures, because I've had to alter the playing field just slightly. Now, Fabri-Tac is not going to take that long to dry, so I'm just going to put the lid back on there before it gets messy here. So let's just let that sit. I think we can actually get rid of this at the moment. We're not going to need that. So, right. So I know I sound a bit paranoid about this bit, but to me this is quite an important section of the whole build. You could use card in there. The only thing is that as this area here, which you can see me working down, is actually a stress area. So if you had paper or card in it, then you're going to find that eventually the paper could just, the fibers would just tear apart. Right, so I'm going to let that sit. Let's push it up there, out the way. Sun from the window is probably going to dry that. Okay, let's have a little chat about what I had to do with signatures. So I've got the 3 signatures here. Now I ended up taking 2 pages out of the signature because when I held these together, because this of course is the first time I saw the thickness, that's the thickness of the 3 signatures together, and the spine is no more than 1 inch anyway, so I think that's enough. So I've taken some out, so just so you have an idea. So I took 2 out, so I now have 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, then the butterfly page, 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. And I've only done that because I know from my other journals that I really do add stuff in, and I glue stuff in, and I stick stuff in, and I put artwork in. So I know that it would become very bulky if I didn't do that. So that's what I've done with that. Okay, I've got this. We'll explain this later on. What's the next bit I needed to do? I came in and I found another 2 pieces of this. I knew I had them, I just didn't know where I put them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these as the inside, excuse my arm, of the covers. So I thought that would look absolutely fabulous there. As you can see, once that's stuck over there, and once that's stuck over there, that will make this really quite a pretty looking inside cover, and it will actually then give me more to the theme as well. So that's that bit. What else did you need to know? I think that was pretty much it. So all we need to do now is start working on, so I'm just really making sure that's pressed down. This is almost dry. We can move on with that in a few seconds anyway. So, right, so those are the covers. Now what we need to do now is we're going to have to make ourselves a template for the center. And by that I mean I need to make it so that I know where to put the holes, e.g. the holes in here. Is that a little bit lifted up? So I just want to see whether that's lifting or not. No, it got glued down. Okay, so we need to make a template that is actually the same size as that. And I need to make it from a piece of paper that's actually the whole length of this. So let me just see if I can pull out a scrap something or other. That will do. Okay, so I need to do a bit of measuring, and it's worth spending the time doing this right. Okay, not that you're going to take shortcuts, but it's worth doing this correctly. So I'm going to put this the whole length of this, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it off. I'm just going to use, where's my right angle gone? And this isn't me being really pedantic about stuff. It will help you in the long run if you do all of your measurements correctly. So I'm going to come across there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write T on here, and that T represents the top. So this is the cover, and this represents the top. Very much reasons for doing that, and those will become apparent as we go along. I'm just going to cut this off. Sorry, I don't seem to be able to talk and cut at the same time, probably very sensibly. So let's see, I want to put this so that I know the edges of this. My T is going to get cut off, isn't it? So just re-establish the T, Griffiths. And again at the bottom. And the reason I'm being a bit picky about this is the holes that I'm going to push through here need to actually go through this here. So let's just again come in with my right angle piece and draw a line down. And then we're going to cut that. Now, because I do journals that I make by hand a lot of the time, I've got templates that actually fit all of my regular size journals. So you don't always have to do this. You only need to do it if you're doing a book that you're not used to the dimensions of. So here we go. So I've now got this, and it fits directly down there. Now, a couple of other things I need to now do is I now need to find the center of this. Obviously, the easiest way to do that is to actually fold over and give it a pinch. Now, that will give me the center. Now, I'm actually going to draw a line across that center, just so I know where that is on my piece of card. Now, I also now need to work out where the edges of my signatures are going to be, because remember, this is smaller than the actual cover. So I'm then going to come in and I'm going to fold my signature template in half. If I line that up with my line, that will then give me equidistant top and bottom to show me where I need this to be. So let's come in here and just use my scraper to do a straight line on there. So hopefully I'm in shot. I should be in shot. So now effectively this space here is exactly the same space. Sorry, not in camera, am I? This is exactly the same height as my signature. Also, this is the whole spine, and it's put this equidistant there. Now, this is important because it actually shows me where the signature needs to be. The first hole is going to be, the middle hole is going to be on this line, but I do need to come down a bit, and I would probably say, oh, maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, because if I look at this, that's where the cardboard starts. So if I come down about 1/2 inch, even 1 inch, and if we're doing 1 inch, that'll just show you 1 inch is to here, so maybe I'll do 1/2 inch. So if I come down 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom, I know this sounds a bit like a math test here, but you'll understand what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So hopefully it will all, did I say 1/2 inch? Let's make it 3/4 of an inch. So 3/4 of an inch there. I think that's Biscuit barking at the postman. So Darcy, that's Biscuit saying hello to you, and love and hugs as always. So, okay, so now if I lay that on there, let's lay it to one side just so you can see where the math comes into play. So if we now have my signature will be sewn in at the central point and here and here. And the joys of that is it will actually create a bit of space at the top, so there's less of a stress, but it's equally balanced within the signature. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to draw those lines across. If you're wondering what this ruler is, by the way, it's a quilting ruler. I quite like quilting rulers. I quilt, so that's one benefit to having a quilting ruler. But I like it because it's usually transparent and it's divided up into measurements. And I really like that about these. So there you go. Just make sure that central line is actually straight, which it is, but it doesn't hurt to reinforce it. So what I'm going to do now is, just so I don't lose track of where I am, I'm going to put that marking there and that marking there so that I don't inadvertently go to the wrong place. Now, we know this is 1 inch wide. So obviously the central line would be 1/2 inch. So I've got 1/2 inch there and 1/2 inch there. And as you can see, I said that once I make a template, I've usually got a template pretty much for life. This is another reason I like quilting rulers. As you can see, there's a 1/2 inch line that I can line up along my spine. So this will give me 1, 2, 3 holes where I need them to be. Now I've got to actually put in another 2 lines. So I'm going to come out to that dotted line on this ruler, which I think is, where's 1 inch on this? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1/2 a quarter. What's 1/2 a quarter? 1/8. There you go. So I'm going to put a line down here. And I'm going to do the same on this side with a line down here. Now I should have, why does that not look right? It is right. Sorry, it's my glasses. I wear varifocal, so it's a bit of an optical illusion sometimes. So I've now made my template for sewing in. And as I said, we're aiming for good, we're not aiming for perfect. So I'm going to come in now and I'm going to use a black marker just so that I know where these holes are. Just to cement that in my mind. Now, let's talk a little bit about the old bookbinding process here. I'm going to need to punch these holes through this all the way through the cover to the other side to do a pamphlet stitch, which is what I'm planning to do. Then these measurements will then need to be punched into the signatures as well. Okay, are we all on the same page there? So what I've got is I've got a bookbinding kit. Now, it didn't come in this little pouch, it came in a smaller pouch, but if this is the one I used, I've found this little pouch and put them in there. Now, if you're looking for something like this, I know Gail Augustinelli has actually got a bookbinding kit on her website, and it's under her Gail's Favourite Things. You can buy these on Amazon because that's where I bought this one. This is heavy duty thread on here. If you're really desperate, I've actually sewn them in using dental floss before now, because that's a pretty tough thing as well. So, and then I've also got an old book. Right, let's move the cover out of the way because it's not needed yet. Now, this is an awl. I don't know how you spell it. I think it's AWL. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to pierce these holes through the card first. It's easier to do it now than it is later on. And I'm pushing down into an old book because obviously you don't want to damage your work surfaces. There are things on the market called book cradles for book binding. So if you do start doing this and you want to do it more often, look for a book binding cradle. I think Crafty Cat USA does them. I think if you look at Crafty Cat on YouTube and find her, then you're going to find there's a link for her website or her Etsy store in the description box of her video. That one's not done perfectly well, so I need to just, I must have slipped into an existing hole, right? But I will see that when it gets done. So, right, so we've done that. So I've now got this sorted. I now need to transfer these into here. First things first, take a couple of clips and actually clip this centrally in place. So I'm using my fingers here to make sure that I've got this piece absolutely in the center. And by that I mean I can feel the grooves of the cardboard either side. So the cardboard that we've laminated put into the spine. So it's important that this is straight, and I'm doing it this way so it's secured. The T was there and that is the top. So there you go. So this is now in place. These are covering those. I'm not worried because I'll just flip them up when I need to do those ones. So putting my book underneath, I'm now going to go directly down and through all of the layers of cardboard into the book below. It's probably going to wiggle you, and I do apologize for my arm being in the way because I'm almost certain it's going to be in the way. But there's no other way for me to do this without getting in the way because I'm having to do it from above. So I've got the holes this side. I'm not worried that they're sticking out a bit because what I'm going to do is there's stuff going over the back of this anyway, and I can flatten those out later on. So that's the first one done. Why did that move? Right, pull this side up, and I'm going to do the same process here through all three of these. And I'm going to repeat the process on this end. Okay, now if you're doing a fabric spine, let's take this off because that's not needed. If you're doing a fabric spine over the top, over this, sometimes you might find it difficult to actually see the holes once you've done them. But I'm just going to press those down again and just re-establish them a bit so that I haven't got a huge hole coming through the other side. As you can see, the book will just press down when they're in, and that actually works in my favour because it snaps and seals in. It's not snaps. It seals in all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? All of the threads and everything. So we've put the holes in there. Now we need to remember which way up this goes. We now need to do this to the spine. Now the easiest way I found to do this is just fold this in half along that central line, because we know that each of the holes should be in line. I mean, there's human error. We're not going to be a machine here. So I'm just folding that down, and then I'm folding it back on itself so that I've got a V-shaped piece of paper. Right, so now I've got this and I know where the top is because it's there. Sorry, having a bit of a moment. Sorry about that. Right, where did I put the signatures? Where did I put the signatures? Okay, signatures. I'm going to do one. Then I'm going to pause you and I'm going to pierce the other of the two because you don't need to sit through it 3 times. As I said, I'm trying to make sure that this video doesn't end up a million years long. So I'm going to tap this down. I'm going to make sure the orientation of this is the correct way. I'm going to make sure I've got all of my pieces folded so I'm at the center of the book. or center of the signature, I'm going to use one of these clips and I'm going to clip there. Now I've found that if I clip opposite ends and opposite sides, I get a tighter fit to the back of this. So let's push this one in again. So I want to make sure that all of these are actually together. So that in there. Got another one of those clips somewhere. Let's steal it off one of these. There you go. I use these little clips all of the time. Now, I'm finding that's not tight enough in, so I'm just going to push it in my fingers and retighten that there. So I want to make sure that everything is as close to that spine as possible. So that's my signature, and I double check it is the right way up. I'm now going to take my template and I'm going to lay it down the center here. Now, we know that this line here and this line here are actually the marks I need to be worried about. Let's move that up a bit. So these are the lines that are on the book. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to pierce right down through the center of this. Now, if you have your book folded upwards and pressed downwards, you will find that you'll go directly through the spine. And by that I mean, if your book is in a V shape, as this one is, find the other mark, there it is, then as I'm pushing down, it should come directly out through the back of the book. And there I've got a signature, and there I've got my 3 holes. So I'm going to do that with the other 2 in a moment. First of all, we're going to look at maybe getting this one in. Okay, I just realized we'll sew this one in and then I'll go back and show you everything in a moment. Am I doing this in the right order? Yes, I am, because I can put the back things on afterwards. So we've got our signature in place. I'm leaving it clipped together at this point. Okay, I'm going to push those clips down, and I'm doing that so that nothing moves. I don't want the alignment of the holes to alter. So right, bring in our spine. Now, it depends on you as to how many thicknesses of the thread you use. I tend to double it, but that's because I'm OCD and I just panic things are not done correctly. I do know people do just 1 thickness, I do 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll take a bit off the end of that. And as I said, a lot of people just use 1 thickness. I like to use 2. So I'm going to come in and stop the cotton rolling all over the place and thread this through. Now, there are several hundred different ways of binding books, I'm sure. I'm using just a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch. There are 2 different ways to do a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but I'm just going to show the one that I use often, and maybe in future videos, because I plan to do a series on making journals in 2022, so we'll visit those other versions anyway. I like to start with the back signature and work forward. Other people like to start at the front and work backwards. Your choice, find out what works best for you. The whole thing of check twice, cut once, always make sure you've double checked your signatures. Now this can be a bit fiddly to do with the camera, but I'm going to have a go. So I've gone through my central hole, I've gone through the last hole in the signature in the cover, and I pulled this all the way through till I've got about that much. And I'm going to try and hold that with my thumb to the best of my abilities. Then I'm going to come back in through the bottom hole. Sometimes you get lucky and it goes straight through the pages. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's good. I've got it through here. And once I've done that, I give a little bit of a check. Yes, it's in the right place. Then I'm going to go through the central hole again. Now, it's important to pull your thread to one side, not too tightly, but keep it taut, because when you put the needle through, you don't want the needle splitting that thread. So I'm going to go through again. Went straight through the cover this time, which I'm quite happy about. Then I'm going to come back in at the top, in through that hole. Now I like to come through and then thread it into the signature at this point. If you're lucky enough to line everything up, you're quite good, and I'm happy about that. But this is the way it works for me. So now I've got it through hole, hole, hole. I've got that all sorted out. I now need to make sure this is quite taut. So this is on this side. I'm going to thread this through, pull it tight. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to make a couple of knots. I want to make sure that that's really pulled tight. It needs to be almost like a bowstring. So let's give this a knot. This is the point at which you really, really need to check. You can redo these signatures later if you don't think they're tight enough, but I like to do it right the first time. And then I'm going to do another one. Now, at this point, you could leave these down, cut this off. Let's just give that a snip. Put the needle out of my way so I don't drop it. You could leave these dangling down because you could potentially put charms on them. I'm not really a charms sort of person for this one. You could come in and you can tie a little bow in the middle, and what that will do is if you tie a little bow in the middle, that means you still have the lengths if you wish to actually add charms on later. But for me, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to snip this off. I don't snip right at the knot. I snip a little bit away from the knot, and then I can take these off, these clips. Or I would if I could get my hand around there. And that's got my first signature into the journal. Now, let's just talk you through what I did again, and then I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to get the other two signatures sewn in just to save time on this. So we took our thread, we went through the middle, all the way through to the outside. I then came back in through the bottom one. I then went back out through the middle one, making sure I held the cotton taut so that it actually didn't split the thread. I then went back in the top one, pulled it all the way down, threaded under the existing, and then I tied it in a knot, and that puts my first signature in, and it's nice and firm and held in place. So I'm going to leave you here for a few seconds. I'm going to do the other two signatures, and then we're going to come back and carry on. So here I am back again. All three signatures are sewn in, all done in the same fashion as before. A few things I just wanted to say that I just want to make sure that I've reiterated. I've used waxed thread here. You can use any thread you want. I would say probably don't use just regular sewing cotton because it might snap on you, but a heavy duty thread is good. A waxed thread is good. I do know you can sew it with embroidery flosses. I know that I've used dental floss before now because that's a waxed thread as well. The waxiness really makes the knot stay firmly tied. So I choose normally to use a thread that actually will match my spine. In this case, mine is going to be covered. If it's not going to be covered, then you need to make a decision. Are you actually going to make it stand out? Or are you going to put lace around it? Are you going to have it in a contrasting colour? What are you doing with the spine is one thing to consider beforehand. So that's that done. A couple of things about the signatures. As you saw, I took them down to 3 pages, then the butterfly page, and then 3 pages. Now, what that means is, and you may think, oh, that's not a lot of pages, but looking at this, I don't want it to become alligator mouth immediately. That's only standing open because it hasn't been held closed for a while. So, but what it means is, if I've got, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I've got 7 sheets of paper in each signature, when I folded them in half, I will end up, and then I put them in with the 3 signatures, I'll actually have 84 sides to work on. So although it doesn't look a lot of paper, it really does, because obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So there you go, 28 sides. Sorry, I counted 29, but it should be 28 for each of those. That gives me far enough stuff to work with. Right, now let's go on to the pretty decorative stuff now. Okay, so that's the basis of our signature, and I'm going to put these book boards, as I call them, in. Now I need to decide which one I want at the front and which one I want at the back. And I'm a little torn because I love them both, so I think we're gonna go with this version. Okay, I think that in the back and that in the front. Now, if you're interested in doing bookbinding or anything of that sort, There's a couple of people I would recommend looking at. Gail Augustinelli has her YouTube channel. It's called Gail Augustinelli, and she does lots and lots of journals, and you'll see lots of variations. There's also someone else on YouTube called Nick the Booksmith, and that's N-I-K the Booksmith, and she does lots of bookbinding stuff. So lots of resources out there. As I said, I will be doing a series of my own, but I'm aiming mine at the beginners, working up to more experienced. However, there's going to be plenty of stuff on mine, but there's much more advanced stuff on other people's. So I'm going to stick these in with Fabri-Tac. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put Fabri-Tac all the way around the edges, which are the more important part of this process. So bear with me. Now I'm going to put it close to the edge, but not actually on the edge, purely because as I flatten this down and put this in, it's probably going to seep out a bit, and I don't want it flooding my signatures and causing a problem. This is not going to see that much stress or use or wear. I'm going to do a little bit more at the bottom because later on, you never know, I might actually put a pocket on the inside cover, but I'm unsure. So I'm going to line that up with that black triangle, line that up with that one, a little bit of sliding room, which is the reason I use Fabri-Tac instead of art glitter glue, because I know I'll be able to slide this around a bit. And I'm going to give this a good press down. I'm going to come in from this side so I'm not blocking myself. So I'm going to give that a bit of a squish down, just to make sure that I've squished the glue in all directions. I don't want to damage the image, so I'm going to use my hand as well. So you can use a brayer. I mean, I've got this little tool I sometimes use just to squish out the glue. It's up to you. This isn't necessarily a brayer. I think this was for leather working. I found it and I loved it, so I use it quite often. So that's that side, and we're going to do the same on the other side. I did stick it the right way up, didn't I? Note to self, always check you stick things the right way up. So I've got this upside down because this is the back of the book. Now, another thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about sewing your signatures in. My signatures, it doesn't matter which order they're in, as long as they're the right way up. If, however, you were doing signatures that had to be entered in a certain order, let's see what example. So say you were something that was, it was a journal for someone who's giving birth to a little child, and you want the first section you've made really babyish, the second one is going to cover the teen years, and so on. You get the idea. Or say you're doing a rainbow journal, and the rainbow journal needs, the colours need to be in a certain order. What I tend to do is I stick a post-it note, just any sort of post-it note with a number on the front, so I've got them in the right order. It's not a disaster if you sew them in the wrong order, because if you realise before you cover the sewing up on the spine, let's turn it back around so I can do it this way, you can always just snip the stitching and then redo the stitching and sew the whole thing back in again. Okay, so it's not the end of the world if you don't do it correctly. It's just easier to do it correctly in the first time. Let's get my little roller out. So there you go. So that's given me my inside of my cover all sorted. Let's layer that down. So I think we're doing quite well. I'm liking the look of this so far. I've got a nice pretty inside cover. As I said, I'd like the signatures to have been taller, but I do know that I've got the habit of having things hanging down. I've got things like tags which have pieces at the top. So I'm not overly bothered. And to be honest, if I wanted to put tabs, I would normally put them on that side. Maybe I'll put the tabs on the top of the page. So this gives me a nice looking journal, and I've got that theme of butterflies going through it, which have come from the cover onwards. So now let's address the spine. I was going to say the problem of the spine, but it's not really a problem of the spine. It's just the spine. Now, let's see if I can open this up into the middle and lay it flat so it's easier for you to see. Now, originally, I was going to put a piece of fabric down here. And I actually selected the fabric, and that was the fabric. Although, I actually thought it was too dominant, and I wanted it to fray down the sides, so I was just going to run a sewing machine stitch around it, and I wanted to fray top and bottom and sides. However, I think it's too heavy, and I mean heavy visually for this. I wanted to keep it delicate, so I went through my stash, and although I'm not a lover of lace, I found that, and it's absolutely exactly the right size, and I'm loving that. And also what I noted was I can actually thread the lace so it goes over to the inside of here, which is great. So that means I can wrap it around. So if I leave an extra 2 loops on my length, I'll be able to use this and wrap it around, so I've got a nice neat edge to it. So let's just bring in my big old scissors. Love a Tim Holtz scissors. So that leaves my 2 loops at the top, and that will leave 2 loops at the bottom. There may be slight trimming, you never know, because when you glue stuff down, sometimes you stretch it a bit when you attach it down. So is there a right and is there a wrong side of this lace? I don't know that there is. It looks identical on both sides. So okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use Fabri-Tac once again. Now I know this is exactly the width of this spine, which I'm very happy about. So that means I don't have to think too hard. Also, this will end up sealing all of those holes in, and everything will get nicely sewn in, glued in, and everything will be really, really secure. This is why I said you need to make sure that you've sewn your signatures in the right way up before you do this section, because otherwise they're going to be glued in, and basically you could probably take them out. But if I was you, I'd go, right, we've married that, I just need to cover the pages where I made the mistakes, which we haven't made any mistakes, thank goodness. So that's a liberal amount of glue on there. I'm going to come in. To me, it's very important that it's straight. I'd like it to be straight. I'd like to also make sure it's down the spine evenly. This feels like it needs to come over a little bit. There you go, that feels better to me. Now, if you're using a finer lace, like one with more holes in, what I would recommend is not tapping it down with your hand, because you'll get glue on your fingers. Press it down with a bit of a card, or some people use a silicone spatula that you use for cooking, anything like that, just to smooth it down. Now, I'm going to be quite careful because obviously everything's wet, and I can fold that round there and fold that round there, and that'll just finish that off beautifully. So I'm just going to come in. You can see what I'm doing, can't you? So put a bit of glue down there. I always stand my bottle up when actually I should just leave it lying on its side. Right, I'm probably going to clip that in a minute just to make sure it's all held in place. There's glue on that, there is glue on that. And fold that round. Now, having it wrapped around just gives me an added advantage on that. So I'm just going to clip this with one of my little clips, just so it's nice and secure. See, this one popped up again. I want to make sure that it's fully in contact with it. I don't have enough glue on it is the question. I don't think I put enough glue in there, that's why. I was doubting myself. There you go, that's enough glue that time. So fold that over. Excuse the arm again. I forever put my arms in shot. So that gives me a really nice clean looking spine. I'm happy with that. So it's not wonderfully straight at the top, but I think that's good enough. Remember, I'm not striving for perfection here. I must remember to let perfection go. So that's that. Now we need to address the book corner issue of this. Not that it's an issue, but it is an issue if it hasn't got book corners on it. So I'm going to be using my Fabri-Tac again. I'm just going to lay that on its side for a second, just so I can sit down and work with this, because I need to work with it sitting down. Now, there are lots of different book corners on the market. These are just some of them. I have a selection in different colours and different widths and different styles. This was the closest, this gap, to the width of my cardboard base. They come in different widths, so be aware if you are buying them. They are not all created equal. Some of them have little spikes on them. Some of them have little screws in them. There's lots of different sorts. So I just wanted these to be slightly understated. So when I work on corners on a book, I always start in the back corner, because if anything goes wrong or it doesn't work out, then at least I know I can rescue the back corner. It's not so much the front. I like to put a bit of Fabri-Tac down into the corner, because what that will do is it will attach it to this as well. Now it's probably going to squish out, and that's fine. I'd rather it squish out and I clean it up than it doesn't squish out. So I push that on there. Now I know that it's not fitted tightly to that, so I'm going to get myself a small pair of pliers, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to pinch this closed, and that will just snap it up against the end of the book. So it's all gripping nicely. It's worth taking your time and doing this properly, guys, because this is it. I mean, once this is on, it's on. You've got Fabri-Tac in there. So there you go. Now, as you saw, this was a little more open than I like, so I gave it a bit of a pinch just to make sure that it is definitely at a right angle. I just found out that that one wasn't exactly a right angle. It was a bit wider than what. See, there's a bit of a gap there. So I want to close that gap up a bit just so that when it fits onto the corner of my book, it's actually a snug fit, which it is there now. And that's another reason I start at the back, because if there's any surprises, I don't want to find them when I'm doing the front of the book. So again, going to come in, bit of Fabri-Tac down inside there. Not so much that it's an oozing mess, but I do want to make sure there's some in there. I can't see. It's because I'm not looking down into it as I normally do. Again, it's on there, it's in place. So I come in, I'm going to clamp that shut. If there's any Fabri-Tac comes out, I'll just wipe it away immediately. Make sure that's there. Let's get myself a wet wipe. Why is it I can never get wet wipes out of packets? Anyone else have that problem? So just, and when I'm wiping with wet wipe, I'm wiping in that direction, which means then the Fabri-Tac is actually going under any gaps that are there. A little bit of glue there from something else. So there you go. That's both of them done. There you go. So we're going to turn this over and do the same to the front cover. And we're pretty much done then, guys. Again, push that in. Some people say, why book corners? A couple of reasons. I like the aesthetic of it. I like to see a book corner. Also, as you've heard me say, when I travel, and I do travel quite a lot, guys, if I'm taking my journals with me, they get thrown in and out of bags. They're abused. Let's put it that way. Let's be freely admitting this. I abuse my journals. But then that's okay with me, because they're my journals. They're not a gift for anyone. They're lived. The damage or any scarring or anything that happens to them tells as much of a story of what the journal has been through as to the words within it. So now I'm not going to be doing any more videos on this particular journal, because obviously it's my personal journal. Although, as you've heard me say in the first video, I will use the offcuts. Is that on there nicely? It is. I will use the offcuts, e.g. all of these bits from folding the pages. These will probably become pockets in here at some point. I'll just put the lid on the glue while I'm talking. So these will probably become, I mean, these would make great pockets. I could even use pieces, say this piece, I could use it for the edging of a page. I could make tags out of that. I could make journal cards. So all of these will be kept with this journal, and I will use them as I go along. Like, there you go, that's a lovely strip. So if I was to stick that down the edge of a page, just carries the theme through. So let's have a little look. Let's clear the decks just ever so slightly and see whether that ribbon has actually stuck here. So I'm absolutely certain it's going to have, but I just like to double check. And it has. So that's my 2022 journal done. So all ready for the beginning of the year. I don't journal daily. I just journal when there's things I need to remember or events I want to see recorded. If I go to an event and I've got tickets, or if I'm traveling, or if I'm sat at an airport, or if I'm just sat at home with a cup of coffee, things pop in my mind, I'll put them in. I usually date. I would normally write a date of the entry, but I don't necessarily do it as a diarised version. So there you go, that's the back, that's the front. I've got 3 signatures in here. I've got my double page one. I really love that. I was thinking last night when I was in bed, I thought I could actually put in, you know, I had that art paper I wanted to put in. I could actually stick a panel of that onto each of those if I chose. I'm still uncertain whether I want to do that yet, but that's a thought. So there you go. This is my journal. I mean, I would probably call this, well, it is a naked journal in that it's not decorated. But I'm going to enjoy this. This is my 2022 journal done. So that hopefully will be exactly as it is, bright and beautiful and vibrant. And I'm hoping my year turns into that, and I'm hoping yours does as well. So last things I need to do is, this is all of my social media. This is where you can like me, follow me, subscribe to me, give me a thumbs up. Positive comments are always welcome. And my Pinterest here as well has got things of inspiration for you as well, should you use those. That was me doing that. This is actually Ceri the Crafter, which is me. So I'm Ceri the Crafter, C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm signing off. Happy New Year, guys, and have a great year. Bye-bye now.